At any given fraction of a second, the human brain manages a massive parallel flow of incoming data. It functions without pause, never waiting for one thought to conclude before initiating the next. Classical psychology modeled this environment as a rigid pipeline. The theory proposed a sequential movement of data. Raw sensation arrived first, followed by its assembly into perception, eventually leading to conscious cognition. Modern neuroscience contradicts this rigid pipeline, confirming that processing operates as a continuous loop, where sensation and perception run in parallel. Phenomena like delayed awareness and predictive suppression show that the brain's high-level expectations often filter inputs before they are even registered. The Brain Kinematics Model, or BKM, provides a framework for this reality. It replaces the pipeline with a system of fluid-like dynamics and continuous vector fields. Every mental state exists within this three-axis space. The x-axis measures the intensity of external inputs. The y-axis tracks internal strain load, the unresolved thoughts and memories already active. And the z-axis represents coupling coherence, measuring how effectively these pieces of information organize. Mental activity consists of a continuous flow of physical strain. Our subjective experience is the result of that strain changing its physical topology from moment to moment. This flow begins with a fundamental atomic unit. When an external stimulus reaches the sensory cortex, it generates a primary strain package. Each package carries specific data tags: the raw sensory trace, an emotional weight labeled epsilon, and a directional tendency indicating its path. At this level of raw sensation, these packages remain weakly structured and highly unstable. Without further reinforcement, they are purely local events. Surrounding these nodes are memory fractals. These stored data structures contain the context and history necessary to interpret new information. If a primary strain package fails to interact with these memory fractals, it dissipates into background noise. To advance, the strain package must bind with memory through a mechanism called coupling. Constructive coupling occurs when new input aligns with memory to reinforce the signal. Conversely, destructive or competitive coupling occurs when conflicting data or competing memories suppress it. Intermediate inputs, such as directed attention and contextual cues, provide the energy required to strengthen these constructive connections. The density of constructive coupling determines whether a raw sensory input matures into a conscious perception. Coupling into a network generates a field potential, the sum of individual strain packages multiplied by their coupling strength. This creates a physical strain gradient, pointing like a pressure differential from high node density toward lower density. The gradient is the engine of mental processing. It defines the specific pathway and direction that neural activity will travel. Directed perception and thought require this directional imbalance. Without a gradient, neural strain remains static and unresolved. A signal only advances to the next cognitive stage if it satisfies a specific transition equation. The magnitude of the gradient, multiplied by coupling coherence, minus the dissipation from competition, must exceed the brain's dynamic threshold. This threshold acts as the final gatekeeper. While filtering determines which signals are allowed to compete, the threshold determines the ultimate winner that triggers a change in processing regime. Crossing this threshold transforms a basic perception into an elaborated cognitive thought or a visceral emotional response. After crossing the threshold, the brain must route the excess strain. The path it takes defines the nature of the experience. Coupling with associative and structural inputs creates a distributed network. This organized lattice supports reasoning and sustained thought. Alternatively, high survival relevance causes coupling to become dense and localized, forcing energy to cluster tightly around the limbic centers. This localized collapse into a high-energy singularity produces the rapid, visceral intensity associated with emotional responses. These distinct reactions occur within the same neural hardware, driven entirely by shifts in the topology of the underlying network. This topological view also clarifies states that seem disconnected from external reality. Working memory, for instance, functions as an active state of controlled strain holding. In this state, strain clusters oscillate within a loop because they lack the intermediate inputs required to form a stable exit gradient. The information is maintained, but the process remains unresolved. In dreaming, external inputs drop to zero. The system focuses entirely on high internal strain. Undigested residual strain from the day couples with memory fractals chaotically. This deep processing reorganizes strain and recalibrates thresholds for the coming day. Working memory and dreaming are vital regulation regimes, functioning as essential systems that ensure unresolved strain is properly managed or restructured. Viewed through the lens of BKM, the macroscopic behavior of the human brain becomes a question of physics. Sensation, perception, emotion, and cognition are not separate systems, but different structural regimes, operating on a single physical mechanism. Mental processing only stops when a strain package fails to maintain the coherence or the gradient necessary to propagate across a threshold. Applying kinematics to the mind reveals that our thoughts and feelings are part of a beautifully unified continuum driven by neural strain.